All
Still
right.
don't have any attendees.
I'm gonna see if there's an old link that people might be at. I'll be right back.
Maybe they're in the Teams. That shouldn't be
Yeah.
a meeting.
There's 10 participants.
Oh yeah, now I'm seeing the attendees pop on.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
There we go. Here's our attendees. Great. Okay.
I also see Christina there as well.
Okay. So shall we begin? Or should we wait? Is Daniel back on?
I think we can probably get started with.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to August System Performance Committee meeting. Today I am going to introduce a song, like the lyrics of a song. Following that, I'll have Ruby do the land acknowledgement, and then we'll move into public comment and then go from there. Does anyone have any questions at this time? If there are none, I will go into the lyrics of a song that has been really meaningful to me and is really relevant for me right now. And it kind of speaks to like being a workhorse and the problems that come along with that. So it's called Battle Cry. And it goes like this. It seems like yesterday that I was nothing. Then all of a sudden I'm a volcanic eruption. Then all of a sudden it's like spontaneous combustion and I'm all up in your face yelling, bitch, you can't tell me nothing. Oh, excuse me, there's going to be swear words. My apologies, but I think it speaks to the value of the song. Because I come from the bottom, now everybody's watching. I said it was my time, now I'm everybody's clocking. And I'm just out here sprinting, I'm running right through my vision. I'm trying to outrun my past, but I'm still trying to defeat my limits. Because you only get one moment in this life to be great, and you give it your all despite what it takes. And you never let them kill you. You take everything they give you and throw it right fucking at them and tell them it doesn't build you. And no, it don't ever break you. And no, it don't overtake you. Like, life's like a bed of roses. You take the thorns and you make do. Sometimes you have to hurt for the cause to be reached. But one day you'll be stronger than all that you beat. And you can say, money cannot buy all the love that's here tonight. It's just you and I, so lift your hands toward the sky. I woke up one Sunday morning, stopped believing in Jesus, stopped believing in churches. I stopped believing in preachers. I realized I was a teacher, not just one of the heathens. I'm going to destroy the fallacies, start creating believers. Start creating the leaders. Tell them who they should follow. Nobody but themselves, especially if they hollow. Especially when they empty and death reserved for fulfillment. You, the only person alive that holds the key to your healing. So you take it and you run with it and keep going even when your sun's hidden. Because the time we spent in darkness when the rain come is where we often find the light soon as the pain's done. There ain't no material things in the world that can change the fact that you feel alone. Despite the fact that it gets hard, you take it all and you still go. Take the sun and you still grow. Lose your light and you still glow. I've been there, I'm still here, and I know how you feel so. Money cannot buy all the love that's here tonight. So lift your hands towards the sky. We don't want to fight, so sing with me our battle cry. Sing with me our battle cry. Money cannot buy. It's hard to explain my way of living to people who never lived it. A minute in my position filled with my opposition. To anybody not different fighting to stay the same, I got lives in my hands and I'm fighting to make them change. Couldn't accept responsibility, find somebody to blame. The emotions that I'm harboring about to drive me insane. Try to say fuck everything, but I ain't have the heart to. Rarely had the heart to do a lot of things I ought to. So now I spit it for people who say their chords are missing. Inspire life into anybody that's forfeiting. Because it's easy to keep pretending that there's nothing wrong, but it's harder to keep your head up and be fucking strong. So now they telling me, go haze, they can't stop you. Heavyweight flow, if they can't lift you, then they can't drop you. The pinnacle, if they can't reach you, then they can't top you. Man, they can't do anything that you're about to. And we don't want to fight, so sing with me our battle cry. Sing with me our battle cry. Money cannot buy all the love that's here tonight. And that is that. And I will pass it on to Ruby for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Tamara. Can you share with us who the artist is?
Yes, that was a collaboration between Angel Hayes and Sia.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I really resonate with those lyrics as well. So thank you for bringing that to the table. It's a very prominent issue right now. So power and, you know, like learning how to find our own self-worth and stuff. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. I acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded land of the Duwamish people and other Coast Salish tribes, and thank the original stewards of this land. It is important to note that this kind of acknowledgement is not a new practice developed by colonial institutions. Land acknowledgement is a traditional custom dating back centuries for many Native communities and nations. For non-Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous peoples of the land of which we work and live. Acknowledgement is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth. And thank you. And I just wanted to quickly, yeah, we got, I see a note in the chat about Lauren needing to be elevated to a participant, as well as Marvin and Christina, who are System Performance Committee members, are in the attendees as well. Thank you.
Yep, I've been promoting Marvin. I'm not sure if he's not accepting or, oh, there we go. Okay. Also, let me know when you're ready for roll call.
Oh, that's great. Let's hand it to Alex for roll call. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
All good. Please say here if you are here. Tamara Bauman.
Here.
Sherry Tillman.
Here.
Thank you. Christina Height. I want to make sure I'm not messaging. Ruby Romero.
Present.
Emil Floresca. Marvin Futrell.
Here.
Christina Selwicki.
Here.
Thank you. Frank Scott. Sorry if I said that wrong. Ben Vaughan. Emily Ramiel.
Frank just jumped on.
Frank.
One of the committee members, yeah.
Okay. I will add him as well. Okay, with 6 members present, you do have quorum. Quorum is met.
Can so point of clarification, Emily Reimel was holding my spot while I was on maternity leave, and I'm now back from maternity leave and ready to resume my role.
All right, and then
Welcome
I
back.
will,
Thank you.
Victoria, I will add you in as present. 7 members present.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, the informational feedback, is that Daniel or Ruby?
Are we doing public comment or?
Oh my
That's,
goodness. My
Yeah,
apologies. Yes,
now you want to get right started.
I do. I'm ready to go. But like the most important is hearing from the public first. So please proceed. Anyone who wants to raise their hand and speak, please do so now.
And we do have 3 hands up in the attendees list. Mike Mathias, I'm going to allow you to talk right now.
Thank you. I'm here to address the ongoing and deeply frustrating issues that we've faced in obtaining HMIS access through the KCRHA. Over the past year, we've encountered shifting justifications and a lack of transparency from the KCRHA about this. Initially, our access was denied based on claims that we didn't align with the RHA's theory of change and racial equity framework for some reason. Later, the reason shifted to concerns over unencrypted emails, something that KCRHA itself has done repeatedly without issue. Our status then moved from being denied to having our access revoked, access we never even had, with the timeline for reapplication changing from a 1-year wait to no wait at all. What's deeply concerning, the most concerning, is that we seem to be the only entity whose mistakes the KCRHA holds against them. Despite the fact that we're all new in learning, the KCRHA included, our mistakes are being used as an excuse to block us from accessing the tools we need to serve our clients, while KCRHA's similar actions go unaddressed. Ultimately, this committee had the authority to decide on our HMIS access. KCRHA has dismissed both our efforts and your authority in similar ways, but you have the power to change it. We're asking you to take a vote and acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes, but those mistakes should not be selectively penalized to deny us the ability to fulfill our mission and serve our clients. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next, we have Frank Scott. Oh, is a board member. I'm going to move you over to a panelist right now. Frank, are you able to hear us?
I wonder if Frank put his hand up.
Yeah, maybe just remove.
So moving me to panelist now appears to restore a bunch of functionality I wasn't getting. So the only reason I was raising my hand was I felt like a distant second-class citizen, but happy to join you all.
Sorry about that, Frank.
No problem. Michelle? I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yep.
I just wanted to kind of elaborate on what Mike just said. The situation with not being able for him to have access to HMIS has been making it so that we as clients have not been able to do the things that we're trying to strive to do. We're trying to better our lives, and we're trying to get ourselves out of bad situations. Feeling like a second-class citizen, it's kind of ironic because that's how we feel. We're living in squalor, places that, you know, when we are finally able to get into some place, there's cockroaches. And then we get moved from the place where there's cockroaches into a place where, you know, my friend's child was sexually assaulted, and now she can't leave because we don't have access to what we need. So it's imperative that, you know, that Mike be able to get the resources for us that we need. We have strived for so many great things, but we're blocked. And if you have the power to take down that wall for us, we ask you that, you know, that you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Gail Rawson, you are unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm the administrator at Anything Helps. And I just wanted to also speak to this issue. You know, about a year ago, we were in a meeting with Owen Kaifash and Janelle Rothfolk, and they told us that we were not being allowed access because we had accidentally sent some PII in unencrypted emails. And I have since found out that, and I've seen the emails myself, emails from the KCRHA, emails from the Ombudsman's office, which is oddly also, you know, overlooked by the KCRHA. Do not understand that relationship, considering what an ombudsman is supposed to do. That were PII, that were protected information, that were sent in unencrypted emails. So by their own standards, they should not have HMIS access because they have also made this mistake. And since it's taken us so long and we've seemingly gotten nowhere, we're nowhere closer to HMIS access at this point, I can only assume that meeting wasn't sincere, that meeting was very cynical, and they simply did not want to allow us the access that the COC had, that this body, that your body had granted us. And so they use this as an excuse. And honestly, in that meeting, I said something that I thought was just me getting really hot under the collar. I said, oh, so you guys want to grant us access after we don't exist anymore because we couldn't exist without access to HMIS. And now I realize that that was probably true. But it's a year later and we are actually still here, and we still want access for our clients, because we have clients that have been with us for a year and they still do not have housing. And this is all about them. This is about the clients. This is about solving homelessness. This is not about some kind of personalities before principles thing that is going on. And as a government body, frankly, the KCRHA isn't supposed to be butthurt about anything. They're just supposed to get the job done. So getting the job done is giving us access so we can get our clients access to housing, and then we can move on to new clients who need housing, get them access to housing, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Gail. Michelle, did you want to speak again? Or if you could please lower your hands if you are done speaking. I think that we're good.
Is that all their hands in the Zoom room?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for giving your public comment today. We really appreciate to hear from the community. I believe that what I'm hearing is there's been some sort of miscommunication or maybe no communication going on. I know I've seen a couple emails come through about this subject, so I'm just curious if we have any feedback for them while they're on the call.
Hi, Ruby. This is Daniel, KCRHA, working with Janelle and Owen. I don't typically comment on public comment. That's kind of a standard there, but just generally speaking, we will talk about agency appeal process later today. And in terms of Mike and Michelle, I forget the other, if there was one other individual, Gail. Definitely gonna be following up with the three of you here shortly this week. So just that, but not to detract too much from today's agenda. But just know you're on the to-do list to make contact with. So
we've been on that list for a year, but thank you.
Yeah. Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for that. Sorry for the discourse there. I was just thought it would, we can move into the next part of the agenda. Thank you.
I believe that would be the co-chair's Continuum of Care Implementation Board updates. And the new inventory thing that launched on Monday. And I believe that would be with Daniel.
Yes, I was actually going to hand it over to one of the co-chairs for any of the other committee or IB updates, but I will give an update on the coordinate or the inventory enhancement project. I just want to close the loop on the group. We successfully successfully implementing the new enhanced inventory system in HMIS. So going from that static inventory to a dynamic one where enrollments are linked to beds, are linked to referrals and coordinated entry. This is huge, everybody. We kind of a round of applause. I want to say thank you to this committee for reviewing that initially and helping to pushed the policy and procedure forward through the committee. It was voted on and approved by the COC committee. So we're living in a new future where we have a dynamic, enhanced inventory system. So really big shout out to Janelle and all the community impact team, this committee, and others who really did the hard work of getting that there. So that's huge. Later today in the agenda, we will hear directly from Coordinated Entry, who will talk about the launch that happened on Monday. This is where providers, the new requirements have kicked in for providers to do that work. So they'll give an update. Leah will go ahead and give us an update later in the agenda. And then I'll hand it over to either one of the co-chairs for any other committee or board updates.
Sure. Thanks for that update, Daniel. I'm excited to hear that we are moving into a new era of this referral process, and knowing exactly what inventory we have is a really exciting, unique perspective that we're lucky to be a part of as a first in this industry. So thank you so much to you and to Janelle and Owen for making that happen. Yeah, so I'm sure that many people have seen in the news, or maybe they haven't, but there has been a submittal of the new interlocal agreement draft, I believe, to the King County Council. And so you can find that draft and see the changes. And so what that means for the Continuum and for the System Performance Committee is that, I mean, we're still going to be functional. Nothing's going to change there. It's just that the Implementation Board, which is the other board of the KCRHA, is going to be merged or turned into or become, or maybe not become, but definitely there's only going to be one board of the governing board with representation there. So we haven't fully had time to go over the entire document yet. Personally, I haven't, but that is the update. There are many questions that come from it, and unfortunately, I don't think that I personally have any answers for those questions, because I also have them. So we're still waiting to hear about what that means when they go to council, and when it goes through council, then I think we'll learn a little bit more about the structural changes, and hopefully have time to provide input as public and as Continuum members. Other than that, the COC board, though, is doing the NOFO process. We just started the notice of funding opportunity actual application process for organizations and to receive funding from the Continuum of Care grant. So that is going to be an ongoing thing until, I believe, September. And so forgive me for not knowing the exact date on that. And our next meeting is going to be on September, the first Wednesday of the month. Thank you. Oh, wait, September. Well, the next meeting for the COC.
Oh,
sorry.
Let me double check, because I always
yeah.
I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you. We're going to put the exact date, but it's always the first Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. And we encourage members of the public to engage with us there. And I'm going to pass it back to Daniel unless anybody has any questions about anything.
I'll just add, Ruby, the notice of funding opportunity, the NOFO, used to be called the NOFA. This is really the renewal for the COC portfolio. So these are all the projects funded by COC dollars. There is a ranking and rating. I think we've talked about it in some previous meetings. Something new and emergent that has come out is there are some bonus dollars available. These bonus dollars have focus areas that HUD has identified. One of them is increased HMIS funding. So I just wanted to let this group know this is pretty new information. There are dollars available for an increase in the HMIS funding, which is really good because the current COC amount does not fund all the HMIS functions and responsibilities at the current level. So there's a really good opportunity. I'm going to be working with Kelsey, who's overseeing that at KCRHA, and evaluating that this week. And if it looks like we have a good rationale for applying for that funds, we'll be submitting an application for increased funding for HMIS by the August 30th date.
Great. That's actually really great updates. Thank you, Daniel. Are we going to have a chance to participate in some of those questions? Or is that something that we'll maybe get to look at later?
Yeah, I think absolutely there's a place for some review there by this committee. It's available to the HMIS lead, so there isn't an approval process necessarily for this by the SPC. In other communities, the HMIS lead might not be co-located with the COC collaborative applicant, so that the HMIS lead agency would just apply for the funds. So we're kind of taking that approach. We're applying as an HMIS lead. But yeah, certainly would share that information with the System Performance Committee once there's a final draft of that. I think that's really important, and it's a really good opportunity. That means more funding. And more cost coverage, which is really good.
Yeah, that's great. Are there any questions for Daniel on that update? Not hearing any. I just wanted to say yes, thank you for that. And also thanks, Alex, for putting the board meeting date in the chat. So I'm just gonna make sure everyone is aware it's September 4th from 2 to 4 p.m. And right now, we do have a charter revision work group going on as well. So that's going to be something to keep an eye out for as well. And thank you so much.
Okay, I think the next portion is actually me, and that's to announce the opening of a co-chair position, as I will be resigning from that this month or next month. So I'm wanting to encourage folks to put in their application or to express interest, and then we will do a round of votes, I believe, in the next couple of months. So just putting that notice out there, and if you have any questions about the role, what your responsibilities would be, you could always reach out to Ruby or myself, and we'd be happy to update you on what you could expect and such. Sorry, my phone is ringing. And then part of the reason why I would be resigning from the role is so that I could focus more deeply on the well-being metrics and partnering with you all and the larger community to put up a pilot program or of some sort to assess what the community really wants to see and how we measure success in our systems. So that is kind of a rationale for the decision I'm making. Also want to just be very clear that I am unapologetically authentic. And so if I am in a crappy mood, which I am today, I'm going to say it. So I apologize for that, but I want to model, or I want to like at least exhibit as an aspiring leader why I think authenticity is so critical to solid leadership capacity. I don't want there to be any guesses or any surprises about what that would look like for people who, you know, see us as a governance structure or as a governing body. I want to tell the public the truth, the unequivocal, like ugly truth when things happen. And so that's part of, this is also in full transparency, part of my self-care plan. There's a lot of things going on personally with me and professionally, but it's funny how they're both interconnected. So just wanted to make that announcement, and also to go further into some of my thought process around the well-being, using well-being as a design principle for our systems, like specifically the housing and homelessness response systems. But again, with anything, well-being can apply universally to any system that humans interact with. And so one of the things I actually had hoped to pose to Frank was, I'm wondering if there's any organization like Mary's Place that would be open to, and Sherry, if anyone, if there would be an opportunity to do like a pilot program or project that would kind of agree to fly solo with some of the well-being metrics. We would create them together, we would execute them together and evaluate them with other folks with lived experience. and, you know, members of your team at Mary's Place to get a sense of, is this feasible? Could this be expanded across the system? And if so, how? And what exactly is it that we want to measure? And seeing a significant decrease in homelessness. I'm not just talking about unsheltered homelessness. I'm talking about vehicle residency. I'm talking about shelter stays. I want to see if this could be successful, and then like expand it out. So I'm trying to get a sense of what you all's thought process is on that, if you have questions. And then I would kind of from there do just a brief overview of principle 1 of the well-being blueprint. And then, you know, I'll be providing presentations on those at future meetings, because I'd like to dive deep into each principle so that we're all headed in the same direction and on the same page. And then we can, you know, parse out the details of what that would look like in practice versus theory. So kind of opening it up to you all to provide any feedback, suggestions, questions, and how you'd all want to see well-being implemented across the county, across our systems.
I'll say, I think that's a very good idea, so we can definitely collaborate. Also, I would involve our community impact director. Her name is Allison Moon, because she is awesome as well. So we definitely can. And so I will email you and add her on the email. And so I think that would be a good idea to see that. Because I think that there's not enough of voices of lived experience. And we say we're adding lived experience, but yet we're not really utilizing and talking to a lot of experience. So I totally agree with that.
Awesome. Awesome. Because that speaks to what the whole blueprint is about, and that's centering community, right?
Right.
Centering community leadership, not politicians or funders or like program centric outcomes of what that success looks like. I'm sorry, I know this is a system performance committee meeting, but
Right.
I'm ultimately trying to shift the system by shifting our culture and how we interact with human beings who are vulnerable, because we tend to like adopt this hierarchical, age-old, business as usual structure that has not gotten us anywhere in terms of like eliminating or even reducing homelessness. As we're seeing, it's like escalating. And as we know, with the grants pass decision and the political interests of some public officials, we're going to see an increase in homelessness as a direct result of criminalization policies. And I want to be proactive in addressing that, because I want our politicians and our, like the people who are responsible for like funding, budgets, all the major decisions that affect our people. I want us to have a larger role in influencing local policy. Because that's if lived and living experience is at the helm of the ship, then we know best what's going to end homelessness in our community. Some of those things are structural, and so it's going to take a larger, much more concerted effort to change hearts and minds, but also like the policies that you know govern us. It has to be a collaborative effort, a cross-sector effort, and it has to be bold, and it has to like not bow down to the authorities, you know, that be, because that's how it's always been done. That's a culture problem. And I want to build up the human infrastructure of the homeless response system, because I do believe that solving homelessness is possible, but we're not practicing the principles that would encourage that. So that's just my 2 cents. And I'm sorry if I'm being like unfiltered, you know, this is me, right? Again, I'm in a weird place, but ultimately my intentions are good, and I want to shift power and flip the script on who has the authority to determine how homelessness is going to be solved in our region. Because again, like we are the people who have experienced it or are experiencing it, and we are the people who are working inside that system. And we're now like also being part of the Continuum of Care Board, seeing what the possibilities are, but there are roadblocks and that continue to impede progress. So how can we make that happen? And I firmly believe that if we shift to a model from prescriptive and almost dictator-like to one that is informed and led by community, that centers a community bill of rights, then I think there's nothing that could stop us. I mean, of course, we'd have to address the structural stuff like white supremacy foundations and like racial capitalism. So those are large things that are going to require like a larger societal push. But locally, we need to be taking power and we need to be taking up space. And I think that's not necessarily an adversarial approach. It is one that like, let's not conflate assertiveness with aggression, assertiveness with like retaliation or whatever negative connotation people want to attach to that. I think we need to like really focus and hone in on empowerment-based advocacy, systems change. What does that look like? Where can we like fill in gaps that are that have existed for forever? So just to get off my soapbox, that was the intention, and that has been my dream since grad school, is to implement and embed the full frame initiatives well-being blueprint. Well, the blueprint came in 2020, but the full frame initiatives, 5 domains of well-being, that kind of framework into our systems, because there's unless you're a robot, I don't think you can argue against supporting community or human well-being. And I'd be very hard pressed to find anybody who could argue against that. Maybe you could, I don't know, but that's ultimately the goal. And so just to remind folks of what the first well-being blueprint principle is, that we would be hopefully collaboratively working to implement in our response system, is to, one, start with what matters to people, and that's well-being. And what some of the questions that the full frame initiative wants us to kind of ask ourselves is, one, how, are we tapping into people's inherent drive for belonging and connection, safety, stability, purpose, and choice, and meaningful access to resources? Are we uncovering and building on how a community defines well-being for itself? Are we guarding against pushing progress that requires state trade-offs that will likely be unsustainable, or that will be borne primarily by those who historically and currently have less power and fewer resources? Are we focusing on removing systemic barriers to equitable access to well-being more than individual action or choice? And are we thinking at the level of the family and community, not just the individual? Those are some of the larger questions that I hope that we can partner together on creating like a new way of being, shifting culture, shifting narrative. I am really tired of like the same old status quo. I'm sure a lot of us are. So what can we do to take direct action and help our community heal from decades and centuries of oppressive policies that have been designed with certain people in mind at the expense and exclusion of specific groups of people, marginalized communities? And that is my preachy self, promoting kind of presentation. But I will also, if people want me to send out like the well-being design metric development piece that they just created in response to our ask, I'd be happy to do so.
Oh, that would be great. I'd be really excited to look at that. Thank you, Tamara. And thanks for all the hard work you've done as co-chair on this committee, and all the work that you do on the COC and outside of the work of the COC. And you're a really big help and great guidance for this work. So thank you.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get this pilot project going. If folks have any specific metrics or things that they would want to see evaluated in our, in our procurement policies and our NOFO applications, like let's pull all those things together and see what magic we can create together. Let's see what precedent we could set for the rest of the country and shifting into a mindset of abundance and well-being versus scarcity and competition. That's the culture change I'd like to see, and I would hope that most people would, but I'm not going to speak for everybody. But that is my appeal to you all, and I look forward to working with you, Sherry and Allison. So yeah, yay. And that's it.
Tamara, thank you so much. I think I speak for everyone when I say it's bittersweet having you on the committee and knowing that you're going to be transitioning out for good reasons. And I know we all respect that. And thank you for all your effort. To just kind of reinforce what you've been talking about, I'm going to just share my screen for everybody and show you here. Oh, it's me here. Just a second. So this is the project plan for the wellbeing metric. It's been updated with some conversations that we have. So it sounds like, Tamara, we want to have one of the committee members, possibly the new co-chair, take the mantle on this and just make sure that we're getting through this. One of the things that you see here that we talked about is doing some listening sessions with providers, the alternative being a pilot metric at one of the agencies, and then we can review on whether or not we want to move forward with scaling this. I will say this is on our BitFocus's team's radar. It's a ticket that we have in with them that eventually we will update our outcomes report with one or two measures that are developed out of this process. So you can see here in this project plan, I'm so sorry about that. I'll send it out to, I'll put it into I'll upload it to the website, the System Performance Committee website, so you can all review that. I believe there's already one up there, but I'll put this new one up there after this call. And it just goes through the steps that we're going through to get to that new wellbeing metrics here. So yeah, thank you, Tamara. I wanted just to show that. I know we're on schedule.
Point of clarification.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I won't be stepping away from the System Performance Committee. I'm just stepping down as a co-chair because and I'm not co-opting this project itself, but I do want to insist that I be part of the leadership on making this happen. This is very important to me, like as a wounded healer, I guess, and wounded culture shifter. But I also want to do it with community because that's the whole point. That's the whole point of it. So, but thank you. I thank you.
Yeah, Tamara, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you're not leaving the committee, just as co-chair. That's right. Okay, well, next up on the agenda, for those of you who haven't met Melissa yet, she's our new system administrator over at BitFocus. We do have another BitFocus team member, maybe some introductions there, and then we'll hand it over to Melissa to give us some updates on the HMIS after that. Lauren?
Yeah.
Melissa?
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Searles. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm just coming on board to the BitFocus team to support Melissa in Seattle-King County. Just a bit about me. I've been in homeless services for over 4 years, specifically working in the community I live in, San Luis Obispo in California. And most recently did a lot of work with the local coordinated entry system and really building up that with more structure as well. So happy to be on board and here to support Melissa and your community.
Thank you, Lauren. And for those of you who don't remember, my name is Melissa Sutton. I am the Senior Project Administrator supporting this community make these awesome moves. You get me all pumped up, Tamara, talking about all this. So very cool. We're happy to be a part of that and happy to support in any way we can. And Daniel, whenever we're ready, I can hop into the slides. for the report out?
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Let me know if you don't have the share screen access. I
I
think
do. I'm
okay.
good to go. Yes. Okay, so I will go ahead and start sharing. Okay, so each month, your Bit Focus team comes in with a slide deck, and we provide some really high-level stats on what's going on, and we try to give updates on what we're working on in terms of the annual work plan. So here is our slides for the month of August. As you know, we just introduced Lauren. We're so excited to have her on the team. I am taking over for Stephanie. You may be more familiar with her. She didn't leave BitFocus, but she transitioned to a different role. We're very excited for her. So we are filling big shoes, but happy to be here. Some quick stats. There are 147 active agencies for the COC in the HMIS. We have 1,459 active users, and we see over 10,000 logins just last month. This is crazy. This is a huge increase, even just from last month. So I'm seeing lots of engagement with the HMIS, so that's great. And I switched this up a little bit. So program activity. The community has about 671 active programs. So I looked at it from a different angle, and I was just curious about new enrollments that have occurred last month. And we do see top 3 program types. We have coordinated entry as the top, which makes sense. Services only comes in second, and then rapid rehousing programs are about they're the third, and then closely though was emergency housing program enrollments. So I just thought that was interesting. Definitely open to hearing what y'all want to, talk about or have us talk about here. So for the Q3 work plan focus areas, we have continued support for the inventory go live. We recently are just about to finalize a HMIS user manual for housing providers participating in coordinated entry. So it is a helpful guide to walk them through the flows that are that would be helpful for coordinated entry as they're referring folks. So that is going to be released probably later this afternoon. Again, it's in its draft version, but we're just about to finalize it. We will be starting to talk about the HMIS annual user survey. So that's going to be interesting. I think it's really important to get feedback from users to inform what the next steps are going to be for the system as it relates to the HMIS. We are continuing to work towards the annual deduplication process, so ensuring we're matching as many records as possible to again help the HMIS be a helpful source of truth. And then we have ongoing work related to our annual privacy and security training and compliance checklists. Any questions, comments, concerns? I do see hands raised, which is fantastic. I don't know the format, I don't know, but I saw Ruby raise her hand.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us a really in-depth update there. So you're right, that is a really large increase, and I'm curious, do we think that has to do with the new live inventory and people logging in to do that? Is that maybe what could be potentially influencing that? Just a thought I had.
Definitely. I mean, it makes sense because it's a big lift, it was a big lift for everybody. Huge shout out to the users of the community because, what couldn't have been accomplished without them. And it is likely, unless we do some back end, analysis of like what they were doing in the system, it would be difficult to tell. But if I look at the community, what they're working on in the HMIS, it makes sense to me that there is an increase in user activity trying to prep for the go live. So those logins were for the prior month of July. So it's hard to say. We were working towards, go live during the month of July, most definitely. I would be interested to see what the report out for the August month. So like in September, we'll include that same stat and see what's going on with that. Since now that it is go live, maybe it'll be the same, maybe it'll drop down. But that would be my insight on that data point.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. And I'd be interested to see you in the future coming months as well. So thank you. Let's keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
I think Frank, you have a comment in the chat. Don't know if you wanted to speak to it directly. I can read it. It's here. Let's see. Looks like my chat went away.
Yeah, my comment was that those I'm relatively new here, so the snapshot numbers are interesting for sure, but trying to understand what's the trend might be useful for future reporting, both to help us understand what's catching fire and what's losing steam.
I love that. Do you have any examples of items you'd like to see?
Well, all of those statistics you presented were for a single month, I believe. So
Yes.
if you tried to go recapture those for prior months, I don't know how hard that is, but that'd be a pretty simple set of graphics to show.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Frank. I think kind of seeing increase in users over time, I think is a proxy to added usage of the system and matching resources to, do we have enough resources to sustain what we have and manage that growth in the HMIS? I think that's a real good insight. Melissa, maybe we can talk about it next Tuesday.
Absolutely.
Check in and see what's what your capacity is like to put something like that together, whether it's this next month or maybe an end of year type of report or something. Frank, get your thoughts too on what you think might be most useful for you and other committee members as well.
Yeah, thanks for uplifting that, Frank. That's a great piece that I've often kind of wondered, just what was last month as well. And I go back and I try to find it in the meeting. So I just appreciate that you uplifted that. Thank you.
And I know Sherry had her hand raised, but I'm not sure. Did you want to add anything?
I did, but I don't know if I probably should ask this during the CEA committee meeting. Because my question was just on the HMIS, on how that would reflect on my team with us kind of trying to learn it. And then the second thing is nominations and just how that all collaborates. So I'm more I think about it, maybe that's something I should ask on the CA committee about that. I don't know.
I think more than happy to meet up, outside of this meeting to kind of talk through things that I know. There are things that, since I'm still learning office hours, I'm not sure, but Leah and her team are always very available to answer those kinds of questions. So if you're interested in kind of having a meeting to discuss some things, I think the team is typically very open to that. I know I am.
Okay.
So I can send you an email. It has my link to my calendar, and you can maybe time whatever works for you, and we can kind of chat to see what information we can get you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I was going to say, Sherry, too, this is really unfortunate, but right at the start of this meeting for the first hour, we have our inventory office hours where we answer specific questions related to that. Leah and Joel are usually both there. Let's talk about that. I mean, if it overlaps today, but next week there's another one on Wednesday between 2 and 3. So that also is another forum for you. And if you don't have those links, I'll make sure to send that out to you, Sherry, so you can be added to that.
Okay, thank you.
That might have been Melissa in a one of your communications, I think, earlier this month, right?
Yes, yes. So I've been trying to send as much communication out about the process as possible. You can't have too much, you know? So in addition to the articles that I've been pushing to users, we do have a new space on the HMIS support website, which I hope to utilize for everybody's benefit. So if you go, and I can even share my screen real quick, if that's appropriate. Okay. Okay. Let me get there real quick. Okay. Here we go. So kingcounty.bitfocus.com is, an HMIS support website for King County's HMIS. We have added a recent events page, and it provides, direct links to registration links if you need it. I hope this will become more robust and a really good resource for people wondering like, oh, what's going on in the HMIS? I know there's a meeting. I don't quite remember when or, what time. I would hope that this is an awesome resource for folks. And when you click the link, it has some information on what it's about, and then you can register directly from that link. And when you register, it's going to push reoccurring meetings to your email, and I would encourage connecting it to your calendar, so at least you have that space booked. And whenever you need it, you can hop into that link and get support specifically related to the inventory project. And we can definitely provide these links as well, but I wanted to highlight that space. Yeah.
Okay, great. If there's no further questions, we're gonna kind of move on to the next piece here. Oh, Alex, you can raise your hand.
Sorry. Melissa, do you want to put that link in the chat and I'll attach that in the minutes?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. So we heard in the public comment that anything helps as an agency is looking to have some clarity in the onboarding process and the appeal process. And I want to zoom out of that particular issue and just say more broadly speaking, with every problem, there is an opportunity, and there was an opportunity here to look at the current policies and procedures and where there could be some improvements and where we would need to kind of go to the next step if we all have let me say this differently. I'm going to share with you the policy documents that govern the appeal process and what the System Performance Committee is charged with doing. These are the key documents I've identified that would need updating if this group wants to move ahead with adding clarity to the roles and responsibilities to the agency onboarding appeal process. And I believe that from every meeting I've talked to and committee members discussing this, that is the direction that we want to move into. And I do want to open it up for discussion after I show you sort of what it's going to take for us to get to that point. And in that, I know there are questions about anything helps in particular and other agencies in the future where there may be a denial for them by the KCRHA HMIS lead to come into the system for various reasons that are outlined currently in our policies and procedures. If they're just not able to meet the standard or the security protocols just aren't in place, things that you've heard of in today's earlier comment period. So what I want to show you right now is a document where I put together what I believe is the problem statement that has come up and then the proposed solution. And I think that is what I like to guide our kind of thinking around is, do I have the problem statement right? Did Daniel write that down right? And what are the kind of the multitude of solutions here? And the one that I think this committee has authority over is updating these policy and procedure documents. The process for that right now, rough sketch outline, is anything that we would propose changes to these policy documents would need to go to the COC for final approval. So I think that's going to encumber us in being really, really good communicators to that board and what exactly we're trying to solve for. And that's sort of where I took this approach. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to pull up that document to cut us through the next 30 minutes or so of just discussion here. And bring that up. Okay. And here I'm going to share my screen. And
Thanks,
really,
Daniel.
I want to say
Thanks for
here,
digging into this. Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you so much.
yeah, and the goal here is really to make the world a better place for agencies that go through a denial appeal process through KCRHA and with the System Performance Committee. If I could just get like an emoji or something that everyone can see this, people are able to view this clearly. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So don't mind all the tabs open. I've been doing a lot of back and forth. Don't judge me on that. But here is the problem statement that I put together, which is there's unclear roles in decision-making around agency appeals between KCRHA and the System Performance Committee. So the HMIS lead, I put it down below in the paragraph. The HMIS lead agency, which is KCRHA, we have the responsibility to revoke access to the HMIS whenever there is a threat to integrity or there's a system violation or failure to meet the minimum federal and state HMIS requirements. And then revocation is separate and apart from the application process to become an HMIS partner agency. So just making a distinction there that agencies that want to onboard, that have a funding requirement, like we understand that that's part of it. Should the HMIS lead revoke that access, I think that's that place where we want some refinement, and where I've put down, it's unclear exactly once that happens, what is the next step? What is the time frame in which a written request would need to be provided? How timely does the SPC need to respond to that? What kind of written material do we need from agencies when they're putting in that request? What's going to set them up for success to really put their best foot forward when it comes to an appeal? And then what does the committee need in terms of decision-making for evaluation? Do they have all the information from the Ombudsman's office, from KCRHA, from the agency itself? Do they have everything they need to make that evaluation? So you can see here I put the System Performance Committee reviews agency appeals for reinstatement and requires a majority vote for approving or denying appeals. So this is really as much language as I could pull out from the documents that I'm going to show you here in just a second. And so what I've sort of amalgamated or put together from what everyone's that I've heard from different committee members and in the last couple of committees is that we want to update the System Performance Committee policy documents to include the roles and responsibilities for the appeal process for agencies, improve the decision-making by including information available from KCRHA Ombudsman Office, and provide a formal response to agency appeal that includes the reason for the determination. So really, when that happens and there's an appeal and that process, whatever the outcome, that the System Performance Committee is providing that documentation to the agency of why the appeal was approved or denied. So this is a really rough sketch, everyone, of things that I put together. I'm going to go through the documents that I believe here, based on what I've reviewed so far, need to be updated. And then I want to cycle back through and just make sure that I have captured what the committee here is thinking in terms of next steps. So the first document that we would need to update is what I'm seeing here is the COC System Performance Committee Charter. So this really just sort of says what is it that the System Performance Committee's objectives are, and what do they have governance over? And in reading through this document, I'm not seeing any strong language that explicitly states the appeal process and that the System Performance Committee would be evaluating appeals for agencies that are denied. So my initial reaction here is we need to add a section in here talks about agency onboard agency appeal in that appeal process, and that this is something within the scope of the System Performance Committee. So really, this is just, is it in scope? Yes or no? And this is the first document that I recommend that we would update to say we need to add it to the scope of work. The next one is the agency the partner agency agreement. And here, looking at this, and these will be links that will be put in the meeting notes here. In this agency partnership agreement, section 13, down at the bottom. Let's see, there we go. Guidelines on removing partner agencies or users. This section here, voluntary removal, this is when an agency wants to opt out, and then involuntary removal. This section is really important for the process, in outlining the process for that. And again, this is where I see where the policy can have some improvement. It's a little soft in its language. I think I would also agree it's a little unclear exactly that appeal process at the committee level. So this is the second document after the charter, that scope, then defining exactly what the process is here for that involuntary removal. So this is the second document I recommend that we update. And then the HMIS standard operating policies. And the section here is the Continuum of Care System Performance Committee responsibilities. And down below in this section here, Continuum of Care System Performance Committee is responsible for. And here, really, the language here isn't, there's really no bullet point for appeal process. And I think adding that here, referencing the other documentation, if we update the other two documents, which I'm highly recommending, then I would say we put that here. And then by referencing these other documents, give the authority to the SPC to review and evaluate appeals, and then on the basis of that being in the scope, and then outlining here what that looks like. Again, just that it's very clear it's a responsibility of the System Performance Committee. I think that's important. So scope, the steps, and that this is a responsibility of, and making that very clear in these three documents. So once these three documents get updated with the language that we think is getting us into a better spot, then this would go to a recommendation to approve to the COC board for that. Okay, kind of said a lot there, kind of showed you a lot of different documents. I want to just open it up now to the committee to kind of discuss. Is that problem statement clear? Is it inclusive of everything? And then the proposed solution. I'm here to just sort of freeform write and take down notes and synthesize. Ruby?
Thanks, Daniel, for laying that out. So I kind of want to start the discussion with a question to if our HMIS liaisons, I'm sorry, the BitFocus crew is still on the call. If they had any insight to maybe other processes they've seen in the other COCs that they've worked with, or if they have any experience in like an appeals process, or what a System Performance Committee's like appeals process has been, if they've experienced any sort of just insight would be helpful. And that's kind of where I wanted to bring the conversation, if we could start there.
Am I still sharing? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I guess that's question to Lauren and Melissa. I don't know if there's any examples out there, if you've seen policies, or if that's something you could look into. What I'm hearing from Ruby is, what's out there in the wild.
I admittedly was slacking a colleague about some other problems on HMIS. I am so sorry.
No, you're okay. No, that's okay. Let me give a quick overview of the question. Basically, we're just talking about appeals processes for like HMIS denials, and if that's something that's been touched on in other communities. I was just curious what their responses has kind of been, just to clarify.
Sure. I don't know explicitly. I've worked in communities, but they have been smaller. That's my experience. So we don't really haven't run into this issue in those smaller communities. I can check in with some administrators of larger communities to determine what their appeals process for access to HMIS might look like. I will say it is common. A lot of HMISs are limiting to agencies to who's required at this point, because there's always just so many changes. But if there is a way in which we can include people who maybe aren't required but would benefit from participating, we all want to get there. And I think other larger communities would like to get there too. But from what I've seen, it's often very limited to those agencies that are required. And I will do more research to see some examples of policy out there for the appeals process, if it exists. And if not, I'll let you know that as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Of course.
And yeah, I guess I'd open the floor to anybody else that has any comments about, I know that I feel like there was a document that talked about this appeals process a little bit more specifically. Daniel, did we find anything like that? Or if Tamara, maybe you or Christina Marvin could chime in on maybe what document I might be thinking of, and I'll try to find it.
Yeah, Ruby, that would be if anyone. I mean, I looked through. I went through all of our documentation that we have. I looked at the COC governance charter as well, and I just didn't see anything explicit.
I wonder, is it in the CFR? The code, the federal code of the program, maybe? I'll check. I'll look into it.
Possible. I would say also though, if we find that, great. If we don't, even with what my recommendation is in some of these, with those 3 documents, I think that would really put this group in a better spot. And kind of taking it back to the group again, do I have that problem statement right? I'll share my screen. Let's look at that. I kind of want to get some input on that, initial thoughts on that, and if I'm capturing it right, because this is going to be this will end up being the path forward here, and this will be what we ultimately bring forth to the COC board on, what problem we're trying to solve. And I think getting that problem statement right is pretty important.
I personally think that is a accurate problem statement. I'm curious to hear other committee members' input that know about like Tamara, maybe.
And this won't be the only opportunity if we feel like this is good enough for now. And I know some people are kind of real-time processors, and others it takes a little bit. So happy to come back to that. I think the other thing here is the proposed solution. I believe this is really what we have in front of us as levers, or these policy documents. Is there anything else that I might be missing here other than updating these policies and procedures and updating these documents? Because what I'll do is we'll be adding the language into the different sections, and then that will be what we vote on for updates.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good way to move forward. And I think that that's a good way to move forward. I agree.
And then what I would just, recommend as we think about this and we move forward is that we're really trying to make this anything helps is a really good opportunity. I want us to all think, also more broadly too about future instances where this happens, and kind of see maybe just beyond the walls a little bit too, so that I know people use the term future proofing. I don't think that's possible, but trying to think the longevity of these policies, and trying to ensure that we're thinking through all the different scenarios that could come up.
Yeah,
And then
definitely.
really making sure that you're in the command seat for the pieces that you govern, and that you have all of the information. So I think KCRHA, I'm going to put and the KCRHA Omspud office, because maybe there's information that other staff, COC, portfolio manager, others might have information that you might need to make an appeal decision.
Yeah.
And all the steps. Obviously, these are not all the steps. There's going to be things in between.
Yeah. I just ask that, we move forward with the idea that communication is key, and just, that opening, closing a door always opens a window. And so we got to just, make sure that we're staying communicative with the people that are trying to communicate with us. I think that's a big thing that we hear about, reflected in many aspects in services and within accessing services, is that, sometimes when we call somebody or something, reach out to somebody, there's no response. And so I just want to emphasize, I know that's not really necessarily a policy documents question. I just would think that if there's anything to future proof, we can do that by opening the lines of communication, and just, and just making sure that we are not just communicating clearly and concisely, which I'm not doing right now. And hopefully that will move us to a better working relationship with the organizations that we have in our continuum, and trying to do the good work and bring people into housing. So thank you.
Yeah, so we definitely will have some work ahead of us here this next month. Having identified this document, Ruby, I'll work with you to see if there's another one I'm just missing or not seeing that has explicit language. I'll see if we can find that. So that might be one to add. And then I think at the end of the day, the transparency here is really going to help agencies know what their steps are, and that they know their location in a process, which I think creates the fairness and equity that I think was talked about in the public comment period earlier. So I see some win-wins here for all of us. KCRHA gets clarity, SPC gets clarity, and providers know the pathway forward.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.
For free-form comment here, any ideas or thoughts? Anything open?
Hey, Daniel, this is Frank. I'm again, I'll show my newness to this. Is it essentially the tension between trying to provide access to HMIS to 175 or more agencies, but that access puts super important data at risk? And if one or more agencies, violates or mishandles the data, or has some other serious infraction, that it puts the whole system at risk. And so you maybe on the first try slap them on the wrist, the second try you slap them a little harder, and the third try you slap them a little harder. Is that the tension, sort of? And then people, when that agency is cut out of the system, they essentially almost can't operate the way they would like to, because they're cut out of the central most important resource for working with the community on this. Am I reading or am I hearing that right?
Yeah, Frank, thank you for that like distillation of it. Yeah, essentially, yeah. So as the HMIS lead, if we identify that someone is not meeting the minimum standards or has, yeah, shared data that wasn't, that isn't what isn't supposed to be public, or mishandles or mismanages the data. Yeah, it depends, but there could be an instant revocation. Um, um, Especially in the scenario where it's like really uncertain the scope or the risk or who's been harmed, to quickly shut that down, and so that we can review and evaluate that. And right now, what has happened in this example we keep bringing up is that revocation occurred, and then there was an appeal process that was a little soft and squishy on what the roles and responsibilities were for the committee and the co-chairs. And this here is to try to resolve that.
So what I've seen in the past and in kind of other places is that, let's start with the basic 3 strikes and you're out. So there's and after each strike, you have to prove that you've remedied the situation with more detail and more rigor, and that before the 3rd strike, and this is an illustrative example, before the 3rd strike, the executive director and the board of whoever the offending party are notified that you're on your last chance, and if it happens again in the next 12 months, then you're out. The problem with that is that they might do something so egregious the first time that you might want to accelerate that time frame. And so you should reserve the right to do that. But I think I described it as a tension. Boy, getting 175 agencies to comply with, fairly, hopefully rigorous data privacy standards can be difficult, especially since those smaller agencies probably don't have the resources or the people talent to do that. So that then tells me that you probably need to have controls on your side to make sure that they don't do something egregious. And I don't know all of what that might be, but you probably want to limit access to data, and maybe you already do, that would really put you all in hot water. But I guess my bigger point is, every time they have a breach of whatever your standards are, you need to ratchet it up, and including making sure that their board and the executive director know before you pull the plug.
Yeah, thanks for that, Frank. And I think I'm gonna I'll say this, and I know Ruby, you have your hand up. One of the things I was hoping to get out of this is, in order for us to work on this as a group, I have to be very careful with the Open Public Meetings Act. So if we have too many members working on this at once, it becomes a public meeting. And so that's one of the balancing acts here. I would like to ask, and maybe Frank, you're open to this, if there are members here that want to form a smaller work group to look at this over the course of the month. I know Ruby, you've already expressed that you want to be one of the ones working on this. Frank, is this something that you'd be willing to and wanting to be a part of? And anyone else on the call, think about that. You can put it in the chat if you'd like to be part of the working committee, and I'll reach out. With that, Ruby?
Yeah, I can definitely see the need for a work group and understand the OPMA concerns there. So I'm glad that we are here talking about this in a group today. after September 10th, I have time for something like this, is what I'm seeing in the chat there from Frank, just FYI. Great,
Okay.
thank you, Frank. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking of this as also including it. What Frank said was very relevant and absolutely correct. The problem I see here is that and I know we are looking at it from a zoomed out perspective, but I'm trying to also be aware of the fact that the denial was what came first. So there was never any training and stuff. So we do need to be thinking about denials and what that really means and how people can rectify that and what processes are being followed, because it's not necessarily about a reinstatement here. It's about a denial. And then so it's a section, it's a whole section about denials and revocations and reinstatements that we need to be looking at. And I just wanted to be transparent on that. One thing, I guess, is, yeah. Thanks. Because yeah, it makes sense to be reframing it as to be looking at it as how we were looking at it just a second ago, which is like, if you don't do something while you're already in the system, this is what you should do to rectify that. That makes sense. But we also need to be looking about, there's a process for when someone's denied access, and then there's a process that is to be putting them back into the running, I guess you would say, the access being able to be made. And yeah, so thanks.
Thank you for that, Ruby. I'm just putting some basic notes there to follow up on, and we can use those as jump off points for the work group. Frank, I think we'll definitely have some work already, I think groundwork done by that week of September the 10th. But bringing you in at any time, I think is going to be really helpful. Any other committee members that want to add a comment or want to be part of this work group? I'm sorry if I'm not seeing hands raised or anything.
I said yes in the chat.
Okay. Oh, Marvin. Okay, thank you, Marvin.
I'm really trying. Never mind. I'm looking for the documents, but I know that I've seen. I'm curious where they are, because I know I've seen documents about denial and how the process is, and so just throwing that out there. I know that it's there, and maybe is it in our. I know I've read it because I've seen it in emails.
Yeah, Ruby, I was feeling the same thing. I thought we had some really explicit language in just the basic governance documents. I just didn't see that. So I even looked at some of the reference documents that are within these documents, and I had some time on Monday to see if the team. I'm gonna put a question out to see if the team knows of
Also, if we look in the Q&A, is there anything in the Q&A possibly? There's 9 things in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I think it's the most recent one. I don't see any documents there. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll uncover that in the process if there is something else out there, Ruby. I'm confident we'll figure that out.
Oh, it's right here. It's right here. The current policy. It's in a drive, I guess. Let's see. Sorry. Yeah, we'll uncover it as we go.
Yeah. So for the group, if we find something else, we'll add it to the list of documents we need to update. So that's the update for that. I know none of this moves fast enough for the people who are waiting. So I understand that, and I do appreciate the patience there for all those involved. So really do appreciate that. So that's kind of wraps up this section of the agenda. The next piece is we're going to get an update from, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, an update from the coordinated entry team on how the new inventory project is going. And they also had a win there with their documentation. They hard coded in the new inventory process into the coordinated entry process policy documents. So that was that also went through the COC, and that was also approved. So basically at every front here, coordinated entry and HMIS, we have the official guiding documents for how to for agencies on their roles and responsibilities for the new inventory project. So that's really good. That's reinforcement on both sides. So it's very clear how they operate within the coordinated entry space and what they're accountable for as providers in the HMIS. So that's really the only update from coordinated entry, is that they got their policy documents updated. And happy to share that most of the providers as of Monday are utilizing the new system for those that are actively doing enrollments in inventory. So that's really huge. That's really good. So Leah couldn't be here today, but that's her update. Any questions about that I could relay? I know Sherry had a question earlier, and Sherry, I think we put the links in the chat for you on the inventory questions, particularly with CE and nominations. Okay. Next on the agenda, share my screen again here. Can everyone see this? Thumbs up emoji.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. So just a reminder, one of the commitments of this committee is to review our HMIS governance matrix. There are a couple documents that are kind of upstream from this. Essentially, HUD has put out a matrix of an index list of things that the HMIS system ought to be performing, or the HMIS lead ought to be doing to stay in good health and in compliance with HUD. And most every meeting, I like to bring forth one of those sections in the governance matrix and just evaluate whether or not we are meeting the requirement there. And today, one of the ones that needed to be looked at and reviewed is 7.2, which is data analysis and reporting. Last time we looked at this was in 2023. So it's been a year since we looked at this particular one. And the question here that HUD asks is, does the HMIS lead work collaboratively with the COC to ensure that the HMIS bed and unit inventories correspond with the housing inventory count, and that all projects are accurately typed? And the answer to this question is a yes. So not much has changed here over the last operating year, except for the new inventory project. So the HMIS lead, we review with the BitFocus team any new inventory requests, changes, increase in beds, decrease in beds, and then we update in the HMIS in real time when we get that information from agencies. And then in terms of the inventory and bed corresponding and working collaboratively with the COC, the inventory project is one of those where we identified a need in the 5-year plan, and then that was codified in the KCRHA work plan. And then we went to the new dynamic inventory system. So we are having that collaboration. And with that, the projects are accurately typed. Yes, I do want to make a note on that. We do work very diligently to type all projects in the system accordingly. That said, we are going through and making subtypes. So this is not something that HUD asks us to do, but we're going beyond that in our community, and we're really trying to codify shelters, for example, that we have micro shelters, tiny home villages, and whether or not they're a night-by-night shelter or an entry-exit shelter. So making sure that we're typing those and subtyping those so that we can really have the granularity to know what our inventory looks like. Another one of those that we're working diligently to subtype. Now we're meeting the type need that HUD has here, but to go further subtyping our diversion projects. This is kind of one of those projects that sometimes is a rapid rehousing because diversion, there's a lot to talk about with diversion as a concept, but in practice, it can be anything from paying somebody's storage fees, helping them with car repairs, things that might keep them from entering the homeless system, up into rental assistance dollars. And in that case, a diversion project might end up being more like a rapid rehousing project. So we're working constantly to make sure that our project types are accurate. And we even go so far as to do subtyping specifically for King County and Seattle for our local needs. Any questions about that?
No, thank you.
Yeah, so this is great. I want to thank the admin team also for all your work here and working with us every Tuesday to look at all those bed and inventory changes. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. The agenda. I think that brings us
What's the last one?
to the end. Yeah. Okay, we went through a lot. We got through everything. Any thoughts? Anything anyone wants to mention? Lingering questions? I'll check the chat.
Hi, this is Tamara. Maybe somebody with more brain capacity than I have right now can actually tell folks how they could apply for the co-chair position.
Sure. So I think that when we last went through this process, we submitted our basic just desire to be the co-chair and what you would bring to the table. So I'm sure that a little bio would be nice as well. I don't know if there's a formal process. Daniel, do we have a formal process that they should be following?
Yeah, I'm going to, so this will be the first kind of, I think, co-chair transfer that I've seen. I'm going to work with Austin, who is sort of my go-to when it comes to processes for that. And I'll give an update to the group on what that looks like so we know kind of what the steps are there and follow the other, make sure we're in alignment with the other boards and committees. If that works for you, Ruby.
Yeah, that works for me. I think we should encourage new members, or hopefully we can get to maybe getting applications in and talking about that too. And so we can have more options and more people to be in the conversation, as well as, and just again, thank you, Tamara, for serving as the co-chair. You're awesome. We love you. And we're excited to continue to work with you.
Okay, with that, I'll give everyone back some time. Thank you for coming to the System Performance Committee. Thanks for all your input, and thank you for our co-chairs, intro, and our grounding. Ruby, one other thing?
One other thing. I just wanted to, ask, I just wanted to make a motion that we actually, look at this, so we need to make a motion to stand up the work group. Is that what we need to do, to stand up a work group on that? I think we need to make a motion to stand up a work group on the documents that we're going to be reviewing. And I just wanted to make sure that we're doing the process correctly. So I make a motion to stand up a work group to look at the policies and procedures and really evaluate the denials and revocation and that process. And thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion around that? Okay, can we move into a vote? Alex, are you still on the call? Can you do a roll call?
Oh, yes, give me 1 second. Let me.
Thank you. Sorry, I sprung it on you guys. I just wanted to make sure we're doing this process.
No,
correctly.
Ruby, I appreciate that. I would have just moved forward. I didn't realize, yeah, that she would put that to a motion and put that in the notes.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up the
Take your time.
boxes. Thank you. This is going underneath.
Before you, before you do that, I'm a little confused. So you wanna vote on having, sorry, I've been in so many meetings, I'm like half there. But so basically you're saying that you wanted to have like say it again, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, and thank you. I didn't say it clearly at all. So thanks for uplifting that, Sherry. So my motion is to just like mirroring how we do it in the COC and standing up a work group. I just wanted to kind of mirror that and how that has been done in the process of the Continuum of Care Board meetings. So I make a motion to stand up the work group to evaluate and revise the documents that we are operating off of as the System Performance Committee laid out, as Daniel had laid it out in the presentation earlier. And then Tamara seconded that motion.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay. All right. I have the boxes ready to go. Please say yay, nay, or abstain when I call your name. Tamara Bauman.
Yay.
Thank you. Sherry Tillman.
Yay.
Christina Height. Ruby Romero.
Yay.
Emil Floresca. Marvin Futrell.
Yay.
Christina Sawicki. Christina Sawicki. She messaged in the chat. Okay. Frank Shot. I'm sorry. Okay. Ben Vaughan. Victoria Ewing Kwan.
Yay.
Okay. So with 5 yeas, the motion has passed.
Great. Thanks for doing that, Alex. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
And so, yeah, so me and Daniel will be in contact, and Frank and Marvin signed up already. So we'll be in contact if anybody else is interested as well.
That's great. This is a huge step forward and in improving the process for providers and all of us. So thanks everyone for voting yes on that. And yeah, let's get that work going. With that, unless there's anything else, I think we can close the committee close the committee today. And thank you everyone for showing up, and thank you KC admin team for doing the presentation today, and great to meet you, Lauren.
Happy to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Hi everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Tamara Ruby.